Sounds simple, but how do you define sexual relations? Now, that might not be something that people want to talk about or think about at 9:30 in the morning, let alone ever when it comes to politicians. But many of you will recall that this was a serious debate during the Clinton years when Bill Clinton said that he did not have sexual relations with Monica Lewinsky. That didn't turn out to be quite accurate, so no surprise that the Finance Minister, Matthias Cormann, was being asked this morning to define it.
Look, I'm not going to go into the weeds of all of this. I think that people know what's what. I think that people know what conduct is not appropriate, and the code now formally includes provisions to that effect.
No surprise there's a lot of focus on this sex ban, but it's obscuring a legitimate and perhaps the most important question in all of this. Did Barnaby Joyce breach the ministerial code?
The code has been breached, and the Prime Minister yesterday gave an extraordinarily strong statement against his own deputy, and he put his hand up and said, "I'm the Prime Minister. I think the Deputy Prime Minister's hopeless. He should reconsider his position. He's breached the standards, but I can't do anything about it." This is a weak Prime Minister who's not in charge of his own show, let alone the country.
It was a private matter last year, Carl, that has spilled out into the public, humiliating Natalie, Joyce and their daughters, humiliating Barnaby and Ms Campion. We are in a completely different situation this week than we were 3 or 4 months ago, and everyone can see that. What Malcolm has done yesterday is showing the leadership that you would expect of someone of Malcolm Turnbull's calibre.
So it is a big, hot mess, I think is probably the most accurate description. And there's no doubt the Nationals are furious with the Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, because they didn't see this press conference coming. Yes, they did expect the Prime Minister would announce some sort of ban on sexual relationships between ministers and their staff. We should say the ban doesn't apply to ministers with other people's staff. And Barnaby Joyce is making it clear this morning that he is digging in, and other Nationals are certainly making the point that Malcolm Turnbull seemed angry yesterday with Barnaby Joyce over his extramarital affair than he ever has with Bill Shorten. So, where to next with this? Well, at least we have had some light relief courtesy of Bob Catter.
I mean, I nearly died laughing. I mean, I just found it so funny. I mean, now you naughty little boy, you have been a very naughty boy, and we are standing you down for 2 days next week. And you're very lucky not to get 6 of the best. I mean, it was just screamingly funny. I mean, that was the way everyone else. I mean, I thought I might have been one man out. No, everyone was just dying laughing at it. So now we're going to ban sex.
In fact, Bob Catter went on to suggest that he was pleased about the sex ban because he'd spent years trying to stop women from tearing off his clothes. Now, to discuss this and all the other issues, joining us in the studio is the Liberal Democrats Senator David Leyonhjelm. What do you think about a sex ban? You're right, though. You won't have any problems.
I won't have any problems. It won't affect me. But it only applies to ministers. It's a ministerial code of conduct, which is not statutory or in law or anything like that. So the next Prime Minister can change it. I have a feeling if there's a change of government, the next Prime Minister probably would be wise to change it.
Why is that?
I probably shouldn't go there, but Bill Shorten has a history. So perhaps it would be...
Well, hang on, I can't leave you there. I mean, there's no suggestion that Bill Shorten has a history of having flings with his staff members. I mean, he's a happily married man.
He is now, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
well, he has suffered a marriage breakdown, as many people have. That's your point.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that not many people in this place come to this issue with clean hands. That's where I'm going with this. And for us now to see the Prime Minister saying, well, I disapprove of this, therefore I'm going to make it against the ministerial code of conduct. In other words, you'll lose your job if you're a minister and you have sexual relationships with your staff, is based on disapproval and I think is out of step with his colleagues, even the ones who disapprove of what Barnaby did. I think he's out of step with them, and based on the feedback I'm receiving, is out of step with the community as well. I don't think the community regards bonking as a serious issue. It wasn't until there were suggestions of misuse.
Consensual, for starters.
Oh, well, consensual, yeah, of course, we assume that, yeah. But I don't think until there were issues about did he misuse his travel allowance, for example? Was there any public funds involved? Until those issues came up, all the feedback I was getting was, oh, snicker, 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 what the hell are we talking about here? Everybody does it.
Is it a bit weird, do you think?
A bit weird.
The whole thing?
Yeah. But, you know, you could put yourself in their shoes and you say, well, you know, marriages break down, relationships happen, people fall in love. You know, it's pretty hard to say I love somebody, but you're in my office, therefore I am going to pretend I don't. It's a pretty tough call, and I think most people realise that. That said, having sex with your staff for anybody is a bad idea, really bad idea, and I'm totally innocent of that. The most I've ever done, I've had female staff in my businesses for decades, 30 years. Most I've ever done is a fatherly hug. So, but honestly...
Maybe you should just not even do that.
Not even do that. Well, that's right, this day and age, yeah,
yep.
Maybe. But, so it's always been, it's well recognised in business circles that having sex with your staff, if you're the boss, is a bad idea. The trouble is, where does it stop? And if you start putting bans on it, you're interfering with people's love lives.
Sure. And how do you define sexual relations? I mean, this is a serious issue. Bill Clinton had a particular definition.
Well, then you have to go on a search for protein stains, don't you? And it really becomes quite ugly and unseemly, and I don't think we need to go there.
Well, you just did. OK, but look, on the substantive issue of Barnaby Joyce, do you think he has been a bit cute in terms of his explanation of not breaching the ministerial code? And on that, do you think it's acceptable that the Prime Minister has said that it is case closed on the grounds that Barnaby Joyce says there's not a breach?
Well, I've heard nothing. I mean, I don't think Barnaby was a particularly good minister. He made some terrible policy decisions. From a crossbencher's point of view, he was dreadful. He was at the bottom of my list of ministers that were easy to deal with. He was dreadful. So I've got lots of criticisms of Barnaby, and if he was removed from the ministry, from his job by the Prime Minister on the basis of performance, I would say fine, that's good. But to lose his job over his love life, I don't think would be fair, and I haven't heard any evidence that says he misused public funds. You know, there are suggestions, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, but, you know, spending 50 nights, non-sitting nights here in Canberra for Deputy Prime Minister, Cabinet Minister, I can't see any smoking gun there. This relationship with his friend up in New England, I think he probably had to leave home. He needed somewhere to live, and because of the relationship with his staffer, and his friend said, "Here's somewhere to stay." What he says is, I offered to pay for it, and his friend said, "No, friends don't do that." Well, that sounds innocent to me. So I don't see anything there. But as I said, I don't think he was a particularly good minister, and if he was to be let go on the grounds of performance, then I'd say fine, that's good. And that's probably the test of relationships in any office. If it's affecting performance, then it should be taken seriously. If everybody's going, oh, that's cool, you know, there's a relationship going on, but everybody gets on with their job, I don't see that it's an issue. Now, in Barnaby's case, there was a question of performance because his Chief of Staff left over the relationship with Vicky Campion. So you could argue that maybe there's a...
But look, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much. I know you're very busy with all your committees this morning. You can watch them on APAC if you're very interested. Thank you very much for your time today, David.
Pleasure.
Thank you.